I'm going to do a video on how I do the corner to corner diagonal block stitch without so many holes. This piece I've done in the standard way of doing it with six chains to turn and 3 chains up for the height. You see how it's quite open? This next bit I've done the way I do it with the 2 chains for the height and the 5 chains for the turn. You see it's not as open? I've even gone one step further and done 4 chains for the turn and 1 chain for the height for this edge bit, but it becomes quite stiff, so I don't like that one. You still get the gaps at the side of your block, but it feels quite stiff, whereas the one in the middle feels the same as the standard way, and to me it just looks better. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I have 8-ply thread, 8-ply wool, yarn, whatever you want to call it, depending on what part of the world you live in, and a 4mm hook. So slip stitch to start, and I'm going to do 5 chain. Now this is what I call trebles. In America they call them double crochets. Now you've got your 5 chains. I usually count from the beginning, and I'm going to be going 1, 2 into the 3 closest to that end. So that's 1 stitch in there, a treble or a double crochet depending on where you live. The second stitch is into that one, and the last of the third is right into the beginning chain. And that's 1 block completed. Now to increase, keep going, another 5 chains, around the hook, turn the work so you've got it sitting so your block's up, and you count back. I don't bother counting from the hook, I count from the block already made, and you've got 1, 2, 3, go into the third one. 1 stitch in there, the second stitch goes into the second one from the block, and the third or last goes into the one closest to that block. Now you've got your 2 blocks there. The chain that you left when you started, that's this place you're going to go going in with a slip stitch. Not into the chain, just into the loop. And a slip stitch, and that joins your 2 blocks. Now, to get the height of your stitch, to start your third block, 2 chains. And into that same loop where you put your slip stitch, that's where you're going to be putting 3 more stitches. 1, 2, 3. So you now got 2 rows completed. The number of blocks you have on the row, that's how many rows you've done while you're increasing. That just change once you get down to your decreasing, but it's an easy way to figure it out. How many rows you've done, you count your blocks. So next row, 5 chain, turn your work so your blocks are sitting up, makes it easier to join in the next bit. Count from the base of that block, 1, 2, into the third. But you've got to put 3 stitches in. You want 1 in each of the chains, and you want to finish at the block so it's easier to count back from the block. And the third one goes in the chain right at the base of that block. Because you've already turned your work, your block's here ready to put your slip stitch into the loop at the top. Before you turned your work, that loop was at the side. See on this one here, the loop there is at the side, but after you've turned your work, it's now at the top. 2 chain to get your height, and put 3 more stitches into that loop. And 3. Okay, so now you're going to do a slip stitch into the next loop at the top of the next block. You're still working the same row, but this row, because you've been increasing, you get more blocks in it. 2 chain for the height, and 3 more stitches into that loop. There's row 3 done. So 1, 2, 3 blocks. You can change colours if you wish doing this. If you were going to change colours, now would be the time to change before you do your chains up. I just want this one in only green, so I'm not changing. I'll do another video with changing colours later. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turn your work. Round your hook, and you're going to go down 1, 2 into the third from the base of the block. The next one is the second from the base, and it's the second stitch. The last one is your third stitch, and it's close to the base of the block. Now into the chain loop at the top, slip stitch. Now 2 chain, and make 3 more stitches into that loop. Here in Australia we call them trebles, in England they call them trebles, in America they call them double crochet. Slip stitch into the top of the next loop, block loop, and 2 chain. An easy way to figure out where your pattern was written, if you ever see single crochet in it, it's written in American terms. As in England and Australia we don't have single crochet, we call that double crochet. Okay, done another block, slip stitch into that loop at the top, and 2 chain. You just keep increasing this way with your 5 chain to turn and increase, and your 2 chain for the height, until you've got it as wide as you want. Now, when you're measuring widths for these blankets or whatever you're making, you don't measure the jagged side. That's your work in progress. That's where you continue on. You measure this straight side. So if you're wanting a blanket, you put that. This is your first corner. Put that in one corner of your bed. You measure across till this side here is the width that you want before you start your decrease. Your first decrease is your second corner. I'll do another video on decreasing later. But that's how I do my diagonal block stitch for the corner to corner, and it's much more tight, it's not as open. Whereas this one, where you can see where I've done with the 3 chains for the height and the 6 chains for the turning, is much more open, you can see through it. This one with only 2 for the height, if you really stretch it you can see through it, but it's much closer. Okay, hope I've helped.